we start a new chapter in the Tamil Canadian story, the construction of the Tamil Community Centre situated at 311 Staines Avenue, which is part of the traditional lands of many Indigenous nations, most recently of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations. This story begins as Tamils started coming to Canada in the 1950s to fill high-skilled jobs and students who came to pursue post-secondary education and graduate programs and seek a better future for them and their families.
He came from England looking at moving to another country because of the advertisements that were seen.
They wanted one.
They wanted people to come to Canada. So he decided that he will do it.
72.
Then he enrolled and got into teachers' college. A few friends getting together in house parties. That's about
that is that time.
And a few of them are all bachelors. They had also just come. And some of them came, I think, by ship, something like that. They were looking around and they landed here and they decided. And so these people all got together and then it began to get bigger.
Essentially, back in the 70s, the community in Canada or in Ontario, in Toronto, pretty small. Maximum about 60-70 people at the time, mostly some of the students at the university and also some families. So there was no particular location actually in 70s or later in the 80s as well. There is no particular location in the early 80s. We used to meet only at other people's home.
I came to Canada in 1981, sponsored by my husband, who was my law and legal partner. During that time, the troubles in Sri Lanka started, so I was very fortunate to avoid the trouble and came to Canada. When I arrived, I didn't know anybody except my husband, but the challenges I have faced is nothing compared to the challenges who followed me in 1983 and later, facing the big genocide 83 riots in Sri Lanka. So it was a real struggle for those people to be in a new land without any direction, any resources to help them.
We came here to Canada after the 1983 anti-Tamil program and settled right here in Parkdale. At that time, there was a small community, a transient community, that eventually moved on from here.
So I arrived actually in Canada, Toronto, 1988 end of Jan. So this place was actually very crowded with Tamil people. We were around 30 to 35% actually by that time. By 90s actually we were 40, I think. So many of them were single men or bachelors, and they were trying actually their level best to get rooted here and bring their families here. So the sense of identity was created. It's actually Barbara Hall coined the term actually, sort of a little Jaffna. So it's like people actually felt okay to be actually even on your saram, right? So that they were able to feel comfortable with their skin and the spices and cultural things, you know what I mean? So that's what it was. And then the women were living, standing actually and having a chat, so sitting there. All the people will have their own senior centers and whatnot. So it was a the community lived actually together, right? And then particularly because as diaspora, back home we had this war, and then that the whole displacement actually has created some sort of a belonging here, which was very important for us.
Canadian society saw our community coming into the 90s as a settler community, as a community that's struggling to put its roots on the ground here, as a young community that's trying to find a compromise between their own self-identities versus a new Canadian identity, having challenges with regards to mental health and other social issues. And we had a community that had families and parents especially who had very limited resources and skills and experience in managing those conflicts. So that's what contributed to most of the issues, which led to obviously a little bit elaborated and in some way a blown up issue of Tamil youth violence. So space has always been a challenge. We are a community that's here because we did not have a space back in Sri Lanka. So as a community, finding a place to root ourselves was paramount, be it on an individual level as a home or as a community, in finding spaces to actually gather and share, thoughts and share in celebrations and all those things was very, very important. That's why you saw all of these small temples and community organizations having small offices sprouting out.
So May 2009 is a moment that'll be etched in our minds as Tamil Canadians for generations to come, as we remember marching through the streets with thousands of our sisters and brothers from coast to coast, from Toronto to Ottawa. And that's really why memorialization is so important to our community, because it's about accessing free, public, and open space where we can safely gather and pass on the torch to talk about and reflect on the injustices that have been committed against people. And so that's how we demand justice for the future.
நாங்கள் வந்து 2010 வந்து MBS சன்ஸில் கனடாவுக்கு வந்தாங்க. எங்களை பொறுத்த மட்டும் நாங்கள் வந்து 2009ஆம் ஆண்டு இலங்கையில் இடம்பெற்ற இன அழிப்பு யுத்தத்திலிருந்து தப்பி வந்தாங்க. கனடாவுக்கு வந்த மட்டும் எங்களை பொறுத்தவரை கனடாவில் வந்து கம்யூனிட்டி எங்களோட சமூகமாக, தமிழ் சமூகமாக இணைந்து எங்களுடைய அந்த தேவைகளை பூர்த்தி செய்யக்கூடிய அந்த வசதி எங்களுக்கு அப்போ இருக்கே இல்லை. அதால் நாங்கள் தனிமைப்படுத்தப்பட்டோம். பலர் வந்து நாங்கள் எங்களோட கம்யூனிட்டியோடு இருந்து விலத்தி ஒதுங்கி வாழ்ந்து நாங்கள். ஸோ எனவே புதிதாக கனடாவுக்கு வருபவர்களுக்கு அவர்கள் தங்களுடைய தேவைகளை பூர்த்தி செய்யக்கூடிய வகையில், எல்லா தேவைகளையும் பூர்த்தி செய்யக்கூடிய வகையிலே இந்த தமிழ் கம்யூனிட்டி சென்டர் எங்களுக்கு மிக மிக தேவையான ஒன்று.
Since moving here in 1998, I have seen the growth of the Tamil community over here. It's a very vibrant community. So இப்போ நீங்கள் எடுத்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னு சொன்னால் so many professionals, எத்தனையோ ஃபீல்டில் நாங்கள் எவ்வளவோ முன்னேற்றம் அடைஞ்சிருக்கிறோம். But still when we come to the age, to the senior age, எங்களுக்குன்ற ஒரு இடம், ஒரு இடத்துல நாங்கள் போயிட்டு ஒன்று கூடி ஏதாவது ஒரு விஷயத்தை செய்கிறதுக்கோ அல்லது நாங்கள் நினைத்த மாதிரி ஒரு இடத்துல போயிட்டு நாங்கள் என்னத்தையும் செய்கிறதுக்கான ஒரு இடம் இன்னும் எங்களுக்கு அமைய இல்லை. எங்களுக்கு வந்து
Canada is very diverse, but for Tamil people like me who might be queer or trans, finding one place where you can be all the different aspects of your identity safely is not always easy.
All the எல்லா ஃபைன் ஆர்ட்ஸ் அண்ட் டான்ஸ், மியூசிக், வேறு என்னென்ன எங்களோட தமிழ் கலாச்சாரம் சம்மந்தமான எல்லா இதுகளையும் நாங்கள் பழக விரும்புகிறோம். மற்றது வேறு பன்னிச கிளாஸுகள் எல்லாமே ஒரே இடத்துல இருந்தால் நாங்கள் ஈஸியாக கொண்டே ஏற்றி இறக்க முடியும். அவையும் ஒரே இடத்துல பழகவும் அவைக்கும் ஈஸியாக இருக்கும்.
So we see a lot of lack of support in mental health, autism spectrum, or any other disabilities. They come together and meet with other service providers, friends, their families, and also like young people coming together, and that's very much needed in our community.
Two years ago, we came together as an interim board with the mandate of establishing the Tamil Community Center. As a community, we have a myriad of needs that can only be addressed under one roof. We have collaborated with over 120 organizations to secure land, government funding, and fundraising to get the Tamil Community Center built. We are delighted to announce that the Tamil Community Center is receiving funding from all 3 levels of government. The cost of the construction of the Tamil Community Center project is estimated to be $40 million, including HST. The federal government will be investing $14.3 million, the provincial government will be investing $11.9 million, and the community will be investing $9.6 million. The City of Toronto has contributed land valued at approximately $25 million to the project in the form of a long-term land lease at a minimal cost of $1 plus HST in annual rent.
First and foremost, the announcement that we're making here today and the magnificent center that is going to be built, that is a tribute to and the fruit of the work of so many people here today, the Tamil Canadian community.
There are going to be things here that are going to celebrate and acknowledge the Tamil culture, which is such a unique culture.
The new facility will also be accessible to the local community. which is home to a large number of new immigrant families, single-parent households, and individuals experiencing socioeconomic barriers.
The Tamil Community Center has been a dream for the local community here in Scotland.
My sincere hope is that the Tamil Community Center will bring together all of these elements to support the language, nurture the culture, support the needs of the community, and provide a safe and inclusive space to remember and reflect, and a place to unify. Today we start a new chapter in our collective history as Tamil Canadians.
Generations of Tamil Canadians have worked for this day, and generations of Canadians of all backgrounds will be well served by the Tamil Community Center.